Hey everybody, this is Chase from the All Blue Crew. Today we're going to be taking a look at some Gecko versus Lucci. Though this is actually round 3 of my locals journey last Wednesday night. So I was currently sitting 2-0 at this point. And honestly, if anyone's familiar with the Gecko or just a Black Mirror in general, either the Black Mirror or the Gecko versus Lucci matchup, you know that this is a grind fest. It's a game of who can see the most Morias, and unfortunately in this matchup, Gecko Moria, the leader, is a lot better at finding Moria than I am. Unfortunately, they have hogbacks that can get those back into hand if he manages to mill them, or if I manage to kill any of them. Just real quick, my opening hand had some pretty solid stuff in it. I had the stage, I had a Spandam on one, a Brook, as well as a Helmeppo, and I think I had a Tempest kick in hand, so a pretty solid hand. Typically Gecko is going to play out a lot of 4-drops. That is what his leader ability is efficient at doing, and so having that stage out basically means I can set any of his 4-drops down to 2 immediately, and then I can attack with my leader and set them down to 1 to allow them to be within like Lucci range or Brook range, anything like that. So Spandam does find me that Tempest kick, and then just gonna attack, play the stage, swing 6. One of my pro tips for playing against Gecko Moria is always swing 6Ks at Gecko Moria, as they are very happy to 1K counter out of anything, because most of the things that they want to reanimate will be 1Ks, like Absalom and Hogback. So don't give them that free 1K. Instead, go for a 2K, because then they have to pitch the Perona or pitch like a Sindri, which is like a tool that they can utilize. Sindri is really good at getting a lot of stuff in the yard, and then Perona in the yard can come back out and just punish your hand, and that's what we're going to see probably happen quite a bit during this matchup, as my hand will continuously be attacked. So I'm going to try my best to try to stay at a higher life, so countering out of things just so I decide what comes out of my hand versus Perona. But my hand was pretty Tempest kick heavy. So I did discard a Tempest kick off the Perona just to get it out of my hand. That's a no counter card. We did pick up a Gecko here, as well as a Kaku out of life. I think the Kaku was out of life. So we're pretty set up here to just keep playing, at least for the late game. We see the Gecko. We can see that they threw a Gecko into the trash off the Gecko ability, so I'm potentially up a Gecko right now, so we're just going to go attack. We're going to keep fueling our graveyard. We're going to send -1 to the Perona. Probably just going to take out the Perona this turn with the Kaku, as we are on that 5 Dawn, so we will just potentially do that. Or we could play out the Brook. There's a lot of things we could do this turn. We could instead, actually, yeah, no, Kaku is probably the best play. If I was at 6 Dawn, I'd say, like, attach 3 to Spandam, pressure for 5, just get a card out of their hand. And then Kaku. Those Spandams are pretty dead to us on board, other than just challenging their Sindris. If they decide to swing with the Sindri can get pretty feisty and start swinging, and it's just nice to have a low attack character to attack into that. So doing just as I thought, just playing the Kaku. Our yard is looking pretty light. Typically, I'd like to see a few more cards in the yard, especially with having 2 Tempest kicks in hand. Just so I can potentially be prepared to shut down some of those Gecko Morias. Now you will see, spoiler alert, this video is pretty long, and it does actually go to turns, and so that just, if anything, that just shows you how grindy this match is. This is going to be a lot of back and forths with us each playing Gecko Moria, bringing back our things. I do think I kind of have a better access of things to play from Gecko. I can just like Rebecca, Spandine, Lucci, which is pretty cool. Whereas Gecko is just going to primarily bring back the 3 targets of Perona, the Absalom, and the Hogback. Alright. Moria's going to go ahead and activate ability, pitching the Hogback to play out an Absalom. He did set my Kaku 2-2 off with the Helmeppo from hand, so Kaku is going to bite the dust. It is nice to kind of have 6Ks out, especially against Moria, because you can't just keep pressuring him. He's going to send that 7K at life, and I'm going to take it, because my hand is not very counter heavy right now. I just saw my first 2K of the match, which unfortunately happens in Lucci. Some Lucci builds only run like 8 to 10 2Ks, and I believe I'm one of them. I think I'm running 10 2Ks. I typically like to sit on the higher range of 2Ks. I'm more of a 12 2K kind of guy, but if necessary, I'll go to 10. 10 is kind of like my minimum that I typically stick to. So I think my list is running like 4 Kalifas. Actually, this list actually might be running 8 2Ks now that I think about it. 8 or 9 2Ks. Can't tell if I don't know if I'm running 3 Kakus or 2 Kakus, but I think it's a split of 4 Kalifa, 2 to 3 Kakus, and then 2 Tsurus. So definitely under on 2Ks here, but we'll see if that matters. You know, our typical play line of getting a Rebecca into play and also playing a Lucci to KO 2 things can keep the board under control. But Moria's kind of that weird deck. Moria kind of plays that Doflamingo role. So Doflamingo, being the blue leader from OP01, puts stuff into play off the top of your deck, so 4 drops. Whereas Gecko gets to put them into play from trash, so a lot of recursion. But he also just is a black deck, so he has access to a lot of removal. So he kind of is kind of like a Dofi on a different axis. So Gecko can flood the board pretty hard. So just going to go ahead and start with an attack. Then going to swing 6 and activate the stage, setting Absalom down to a 1, and then I think we're just going to play the Brook out. So this is like the turn I was talking about like 2 turns ago, like last turn. Like, oh, you know, you can swing 5 with Spandam, and then play Brook out and kill something. But looks like I decided to go 6K on the leader, 6K on the Spandam, and then play the Brook to kill the Absalom. Just continuously trying to pressure Moria's hand, because Moria does have to discard a card every time that he uses his leader ability. This interesting play where he attacks 2K Sindri into my 2K Spandam, and I decide to counter out of it with a Helmeppo, just kind of setting myself up for a future turn with Moria in hand. Helmeppo can't do a lot of it sitting in your hand when you play Moria, so, you know, when necessary, use it as a counter, even if you're trying to save a 2K attack character. He does send the Helmeppo into it to finish it off, and then we've just got a 5K coming into lead. He is on his 8 Dawn turn, so that pretty much tells me he's playing Gecko Moria this turn. He's been milling a lot, as Moria does, so he probably has a lot of targets in there. He just wants to potentially see my yard here, I think, or see how many cards I have in my yard. I think I have at least 10. And then he's going to play Moria. Moria has some choices. Most of his choices are going to be the Thriller Bark Pirates, but he could also Absalom Tsuru if he wanted to just to take out the Brook. But it looks like he is just going to go for the long game, so he's going to Sindri, he's going to mill some cards. Unfortunately, sees a few Rebeccas. Well, I guess fortunately, there's also 2 Geckos in his yard, so with the Hogback coming in, the Hogback is probably just going to get a Gecko. He's going to drop 1 Absalom because he's got a duplicate in his yard, and then he's going to also drop 1 Rebecca back to the bottom of his deck. Grab that Lucci. So that's exactly what I was talking about earlier, is, yes, this matchup is very grindy, but also Moria is just better at grabbing Moria, right? He's better at finding himself using Hogback, and then Lucci is, right? Lucci mills them, and they are just dead to the world. And I got pretty lucky this game. I had not milled any yet, so I do find an Issho into hand, though it's kind of, at this point, he's got a pretty big board. My hand is still pretty clunky with just a 2K in hand, and honestly does not feel like the moment to play Issho. He does only have, I think, 4 cards in hand, and he's likely to counter out of any attack that I make. That's like a 6K, just because Moria has 2Ks galore, just because they are very good at returning them back to their hand with Hogbacks in the late game. So I think here I'm just kind of thinking, so just Moria here, and try to clean up like a decent swath of the board. I don't believe I have a Lucci in the yard, but again, we can I'll check probably in a second. So it's been a pretty weird situation. I could, try to clear some of his bigger bodies, but he does just have a lot of very small bodies on the field as well. I don't really want to feed him the Helmeppo. and if I do, that's completely a mistake. You never want to give the Helmeppo to any black deck. You never want to put it in the trash willingly as their opponent, because oh my god, I did it. I did exactly that. So I guess I lived in fear because I've actually almost lost a game to Helmeppo before back in 06. Helmeppo is a 3k attacker. You slap 3 Dawn on it and it's now pressuring your hand. And so I know sometimes if Moria has nothing better to do, he'll reanimate something using the leader ability and then just attach Dawn to his stuff and just swing and press your hand. And I already know my hand is pretty bad. And plus, he already did have a Helmeppo in yard, so there wasn't really a reason. It didn't really matter too much. So I think that was I think I did notice the Helmeppo in his yard already, so sending another Helmeppo to the yard doesn't really matter because he's already got one in there that he could bring back with Moria, so it's just more so cleaning up the board. So looking at my yard here, we can see we've got a Rebecca, we've got multiple Rebeccas, still missing the Lucci. So I'm just like, oh gosh, what am I gonna do here? Do I have a Sabo in the yard? If I wanted to bring out a Sabo, like add a Sabo to hand for next turn off of a Moria play. Still like not in a great position here. So we are just going to set him down, and then we're just gonna think, how do we want to do this? Pulling the Tempest Gate to the front of hand. I think what we're just gonna do is just swing the Brook and kill the Hogback, because then I think I'm just going to okay, double clear board here. So swing 4k into Sindri, swing Hogback, and then activate to get a Hogback. I think Moria is just gonna come down and find me a Rebecca here. I think I do have a Spandam in yard as well, so you could use that to potentially find myself a Lucci. And I think we're just going to go for a very protective play. Probably Rebecca put a 2k into hand and then Spandam. If not a 2k, then a Sabo. Sabo is also a pretty decent choice. Just especially in the black matchups. The first person to see Sabo, typically to protect a decently sized board, is usually a very, very strong play. So I do see some options here. Probably just going to add the 2k to hand and either put the Lucci in hand or put the 2k. Now I don't have a Moria in hand again, so I'm a little less incentivized to put the Lucci in the yard here, just because I'm less likely to see it. So I am going to add the Lucci to hand just in case I never see a Moria again. That Lucci's just dead in the yard. I'd rather have it in play because I do have enough on board. I at least have -4 on board, plus anything potentially I could draw to be able to clear some stuff with Lucci. So just quickly looking through the yard, we did mill a Sabo earlier, the 8-drop Sabo, and then this is for the Rebecca effect. Rebecca's just going to add that 2k to hand, so we're going to have now we're sitting a little bit better. We got 4k in hand, a few Tempest kicks and a Lucci. So kind of the hope here is next turn, if they go a little nuts and kind of flood the board, I can kind of use Tempest kicks to keep the cost down and then attack in and kill some stuff. So here's kind of the mid game. I really wanted to pressure him more, but I really need to establish board. And here you can see I'm leaving one up for Radical Beam. Oh man, I think this is like I do it and then my opponent does it at some point, like leaves one Dawn up. And we know in black there's like no 1-cost events that counter anything that people even run. So it's just hilarious that I could have swung 6 at lead with Lucci, but I think I was just mapping out my turn. He is going to swing a 5k into Brook, and so I will. That is just kind of like an easy 2k out of. And then if he swings Moria at it, I'm just going to block with Rebecca, because I do think that Brook is pretty valuable at this point, right? Brook can swing into things like Sentry, and then also just pop things as well. So I know I need a little bit of KO, so just going to probably block this here, just to kind of preserve Brook. Yep, because we may need an additional minus next turn, right? If he does something crazy, we might need a, we got 2 Tempest kicks in hand, so that's at least -6. And then on board we got -4, so that's at least -10. And we can spread that between a few things, and then Lucci something. Because he didn't stack any Dawn on leader, we can assume that he's going to play another Moria or something. So does go with the Ice Age on the leader. Something I don't really have access to in the Lucci deck is Ice Age. Some decks are slotting that in, but I just like Tempest Kick better. Ice Age is fine as like a 1 or 2, maybe a 1 or 2 of in this deck, but it's not as necessary in this deck as it is in Moria, just because Moria's big crutch, in 06 was having Great Eruption, and so they lost access to that, so they had to play something else. They could play Tempest Kick, but I think if they don't see their Sentries, Lucci's just more efficient at continuously getting stuff in yard. But if you think about it, Lucci's ability and Moria's ability are pretty similar, as they both mill 2, put 2 in their trash when they attack. Though Moria gets you something back, so it's actually going plus or -1 in trash, but also plus 1 back in the trash from your hand. So technically, you're like still putting 2 cards in trash technically, but one of those does come from hand, so it just hurts a little bit more. So he does wipe my Gecko. So I'm a little struggling right now. Seeing 2 Geckos, a Rebecca, a Brook. I know I'm like not in a great position right now. Don't have really anything on my field other than a Brook, but I do have 2 Tempest Kicks, as well as a Lucci in hand. So I'm actually sitting here doing the math. Can I kill both Geckos? And with actually 3 Tempest Kicks in hand, I think the math should pretty much speak for itself at this point. Because, that's not -9 in hand plus -4 on the board, because my Brook still is alive, allowing me to minus something. So I think we're just going to start with the Tempest Kick. We're going to draw a card, and then we're going to, we have definitely more than 10 cards in the yard. We're going to throw a -3 on the Moria to get him down to a 5. We did find a Tsuru off this. Just nice 2k counter, but also could be potentially useful in the future. So we're just going to go ahead and do it again. This time we're going to set him down to 2. So we've already got 1 Gecko in right in order for a Lucci play. And then we're probably, the goal here is just to kind of clean up the big boss monsters on the board. So I think it's just killing another Gecko. And this is like the insane power of Lucci when he high rolls, right? Seeing 3 Tempest Kicks. Allowing me to just kind of kill 16 Dawn worth of cards in one turn is kind of nutty. It would be even better if I had a Moria too, but I'm gonna have to probably just do a slightly different play. So we're gonna send 6. We're gonna send the 6 at Brook. That will require him to use a 2k or more than a 2k to get out of, but he does also have a Rebecca on field. So we're gonna assume here that either the Rebecca will be used or 2 cards from hand. And in the black matchup, with it being absolutely grindy, you definitely don't want to go down in hand size unnecessarily. I currently have 5k in hand, and I'm not sure how many cards. It looks like he's got 4 cards in hand, and I'm just man, I'm letting those cards have it. That's one of my goals for the next weekly that I record is like try not to touch my hand as much, because I definitely flip through it a lot. And I thought about, like, I don't know if anybody's seen like some of those like Japanese gameplay YouTube channels that use like the little trays where the cards just sit. I've thought about also doing that as well. So he does block with Rebecca. I'm going to go ahead and go 6 back into Brook again. We're going to use Brook's effect to -1 on the other Moria. It's technically at a 7 right now, but I didn't have another die. So gonna see here. I did apply another -1 to the other Moria on my Lucci attack. So we now have a 1 cost Moria and a 7 cost Moria. And that 7 cost Moria is about to cost 4. And then after my stage, it will cost 2. And then I'll have a 1 and a 2 and a dead Brook. So Brook is dead. And I was just explaining, oh yeah, that's actually, it's supposed to be a 7, but it will just like represent the other way. I typically like to count down with my minusing, but we'll count up this time. So now I'm going to apply -3. So he's actually now at 4. Going to get a Spandine in the hand. Pretty neat, pretty neat. We're going to go ahead and use the stage, get him down to a 2 cost. That is perfect Chef's Kiss range for double Lucci KO. Do manage to mostly clear his board again, and I still have a Brook, and now I have a Lucci in play. So now it's kind of back to him to see what he can do. I do return a few things that I'm not going to get and slap the camera around a little bit. That is something you're going to see in this video, is I do actually slap the camera a few times. This was the first time I did this in the entire evening. If that just tells you how maybe how on edge or how nerve-wracking a Black Mirror match can be, where you just start losing control of your body. But passing into the opponent here, I'm still keeping, like, I haven't really had an opportunity to cycle this Issho out of hand. Potentially I might go with a Sabo play next turn just to get it out of hand, because I don't think at this point I'm going to be playing it. -3 on everything is fine, but like not getting that first on play off just kind of sucks, and just makes it not feel like it's a very useful 8 Dawn play. I'd rather just play a Gecko. And if you look, I only have 1 Gecko in my yard, so the Gecko he killed earlier is the only one I've seen so far, which is great for me, because that means there are Geckos that I could draw potentially. And I have seen some people play Lucci, and man, they mill Geckos they mill them like crazy, right? And people get so mad that you like mill your stage when you need your stage, you mill your Gecko when you need your Gecko, and like that's why Lucci is so like variance. But when Lucci rolls high, it is nutty. So this is going to be him basically playing a hogback with the leader attack and going to get that Gecko Moria back to hand. So now this is his 3rd Gecko Moria that he's going to potentially play next turn. So like, oh man, I'm like, jeez. And so he does swing 6k into Brook to try to finish Brook off. I am trying to ensure Brook stays alive. Brook has been like carrying me most of the night so far, and so if I can keep Brook alive, I am like got a way better outlook on the rest of the game. Just having that extra -1 as well as that extra just pressure to potentially KO something without using any resources from hand is very scary. So luckily they balanced Moria, the Moria leader enough to where he does require 3 Dawn to do his effect. So they can't do that and play a Moria in the same turn. So potentially, yep, just as I thought Helmeppo was going to come attacking, he does attach 2 to Helmeppo on the Brook again, I assume. And man, I am absolutely just hell-bent on protecting that Brook. But this time, honestly, I see the writing on the wall. Like, I don't need to commit all of my counter to protecting Brook. I'm just going to let Brook die. We're just going to play a Sabo next turn and try to refuel, find some new toys. And he does the same. So he's just going to take a pretty simple turn. He's just going to Sabo. He's going to kind of filter out his hand and prepare himself for another Gecko turn next turn. Sabo, unbelievable card in the mirror in the Black Mirrors, because just stopping the black player from KOing any of your stuff is just pretty strong. So usually the first one to successfully protect a decently sized board with Sabo is usually the first one to win. So we're just going to start with pressuring lead. We're going to go send 7 at lead. He does take it, just because that would be a 2-card commitment out of hand. Pretty easy swing for me to send in. And then we're going to send 6 into lead as well. If he has a 2k he picked up here, he will just go ahead and use that. And I do hit my first Moria in the yard. I would have loved to draw that Moria, but it was 2 cards down. And funny enough, if I had used my Sabo before attacking with my leader, I would have actually seen that Moria into hand, gotten the Issho out of hand, had a Moria instead for next turn. But unfortunately, I decided to attack first. That is sometimes the fear or the misplay potentially is, or the risk that you run is sometimes you attack with Lucci before Saboing, before drawing, and sometimes you mill exactly what you would have drawn. And that's unfortunately what happened here. So just contemplating, I was like, you know, could just slam the Issho here. I do have 8 unavailable. I don't really have. I could just do that, or just slam the Sabo to keep Lucci up. He does have a lot of attackers on board, so I would have to try to potentially use resources to protect Lucci. And little jump cut there. This is where I punched the camera on accident, just completely elbowed it. And it does a little jump cut here. Sabo actually draws me another Moria. So there was another Moria on top of my deck in addition to a Brook. So if I had Saboed first, that first Moria I discarded or trashed would have been in my hand. And then I probably would have picked up the second Moria on the draw for that next turn. So I would have actually had 2 Morias in hand, which would have been pretty nuts. So I will just I'm going to play out this Brook. Brook's just going to come in, hang out, -1 to something. Honestly, in hindsight, I should have activated the stage. Or actually, no, never mind. It doesn't matter. He was under Sabo protection, so I couldn't KO anything this turn anyways. But if he wasn't, I would have activated the stage and popped the Helmeppo, just because slap 3 Dawn on it, and it's kind of scary. So he's got a Gecko in hand again. So this is going to be the 3rd Gecko he's played, and the next turn it's going to be the 2nd Gecko I've played. And so now you can tell just how much of a crawl and how much of a grind fest these matches end up being. So he's going to go ahead and send 6 into Lucci. Man, my hand is getting small indeed. Definitely focusing on pressuring board versus pressuring life total until I just completely run out of resources. And folks, that's the first Lucci in my yard. So my philosophy is, if there's no Luccis in my yard, and I attack with a Lucci and you swing into it, I'm usually just gonna let it die, because especially if I have a Moria in hand. So he actually does something pretty weird. So swinging into Lucci, he doesn't actually do the Moria this turn, as I expected. I guess maybe he wanted to instead just try to pressure me a little bit more instead of dropping the Moria. But I think potentially dropping the Moria probably just would have been better. But because I had the Sabo out, he wouldn't be able to kill anything. But I don't know how scary that Lucci potentially was. But I do end up finding another one in a life here, and he's gonna play another Sabo. So I've got another turn where I literally just can't do anything against his board, and that's what makes Sabo so powerful, and that's why we're about to go to turns. So he is going to discard a Moria as well as something else from his hand. So it's potentially he had 2 Morias in hand. Maybe he picked up a second one off the Sabo, and typically this late in the game with so little resources, you don't want the Morias in hand. Discards a 2K as well. So maybe he's planning for something next turn, and then he's just going to pass it back to me. This is the game's kind of slowing to a stop here, where potentially here the Sabos might start swinging, because we're just staring at each other with blockers. I do find another Moria. All right, so believe it or not, the top 4 cards of my deck were Moria, Brook, Moria. This is insane, absolutely insane. What are the odds, right? But that's like a Lucci's dream, is to not have any Morias in the yard, and instead have them all in hand, right? Because Moria is just a busted card. Looking at life here, potentially him discarding a 2K last turn kind of told me that he probably doesn't have a lot of counter in hand. So he does I swing 7, and then we're just gonna play a Moria. This turn, I'm just thinking of okay, I can't kill anything, but I do still want to establish a board. I think that's a Rebecca that I just threw down. Apologies for the camera angle. I totally just slapped it so hard. But yeah, so we're just going to go for a Rebecca into Spandam. So Spandam, top 3. Find me maybe a 2K counter would be pretty cool, but unfortunately it just finds me a Lucci here. Which is just kind of another dead card in hand, and then I think Rebecca's gonna get me a 2K counter here. Actually, no. Whoa. Okay. Okay. I see what I'm doing here. So I'm just trying to establish pressure now. Even though my Lucci literally does nothing, I'm gonna do a Spandam. I'm gonna do a Rebecca Spandine Lucci, but with no Lucci KO effects, which is pretty weird. But hey, that's a 6K on board, and we're getting to the end of the game here. Hand size is getting smaller. The more 6Ks I can swing with or without Dawn commitment, the faster this game's gonna end. So I am just gonna bottom deck a few CP cards. Looks like, oh, so I managed to punch my camera again, but I punch it so good that it lines back up into like the position it was earlier. So just gonna go bring out the Lucci, just to have a 6K in play, and then I think we're just gonna pass the turn after that. So we are getting to the point of the game where we're about to go to turns, and I want to give a disclaimer of turns here. For those who don't know how end of time, and turns work in One Piece, there are 4 turns. My opponent and I think I seemed pretty confident. I thought there were only 3 turns. I thought it was 3 turns and then or 5 minutes, but it looks like it's a back and forth. So you get a turn, your opponent gets a turn, you get a turn, and your opponent gets a turn. There's no staggered approach. My confusion came from Magic because it was like 5 turns or something afterwards. So it was like a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5. So one player would get an additional turn than the other. But in One Piece, I think it's just a little more fair. Now there are some end of rounds. So if we don't finish the game by the time the turns end, there is some additional tiebreakers, and one of them is life. So players with the most life win, then players with the most cards on board win, and then players with the most cards in deck win. And at this point, I'm losing the most cards in deck. I am winning the most cards on board at this specific time, but he is going to try to finish game because under this specific philosophy, we thought we only had 1 more turn after this. So it makes complete sense that he's pushing for game here. He's trying to potentially kill me here. So he's going to send a 6K lead. Knowing that the tiebreaker rules do state that it's first one, or it's life is first to tie. I do want to try to save up as much life as possible. So I am just going to block that, which pretty much tells my opponent that my hand is garbage, which it completely is. I literally have 2K counter in hand. He's in a pretty decent position here. If we had played properly, the game probably would have gone differently. Who knows? But now we know going into this next locals. We unfortunately don't have the store that we're playing at is a newer store. They don't have any staff that plays One Piece. There's no judges. Unfortunately, I am trying to be the judge, and so I ended up reading couldn't read the rules of a tiebreaker or of end of round timers. So I was trying to go off memory as well as somebody else was helping me try to remember as well. I don't know why they didn't look it up, but my camera is my phone, so I couldn't do that. So anyways, he's gonna go ahead and swing 6 elite. He knows that my hand is not very good. Even to the fact that I literally just block with Sabo and let it die, which my opponent is reading me like an open book here. The weird part is, he could finish me here. Honestly, if my life has no counter in it, which can sometimes happen with Lucci, I could just die right in this moment. And this is kind of the situation where he knows I have a turn after this, and so if he can't kill me this turn, he just loses. So he's going to try to preservation of life as much as possible. And I think here he's just going to stack some on leader and swing, potentially pulling something out of the yard. If you're still listening at this point, I appreciate you, because this is, oh man, I was dreading commentating this. Just because I know how grueling and how absolutely long this game has been. The matchup is interesting for sure, and it definitely makes you think pretty hard. But you know, I don't like my games to go this long. If for reference, for you that don't know, I'm like more of a red purple law player. I like when my games end quickly and with me just swinging all out versus you know, grinding games to a halt. Now I do like playing Lucci, and that's why I'm playing it here. Lucci's probably my second, probably the deck I like the second most at this point in time in this meta. Just because my local meta is a lot of blue and a lot of green. So a lot of Dofis, a lot of Boas. So being able to play black and just you know, sweep the floor with them is pretty nice. And so I haven't played red wall very much because of that. So he is going to swing 7, activate effect, bring something out of the yard, discarding a card from hand. He's going to discard a Hina, and then he is going to bring something out. Probably gonna be a Absalom. Okay, so he did Ice Age my Lucci. I am unfortunately not under the Sabo protection like he is, or like he was last turn. He is going to just Absalom kill the Lucci. So there goes half my board. I only have 3 attackers going to this turn. I am gonna have to take that hit because again, I only have a 2k counter in hand. Those Luccis, man, they don't feel good in hand. They're great when you see them when you need them, but when you don't need them, they're not very good. So guess he's gonna pass back to me. So again, full disclosure, we thought this was the last turn because we thought it was best of 3 turns. So I was moving into my final turn here to try to end the game, and I'm gonna try my best. So I do have cards that'll allow me to wipe the board. I do have a I was trying to think here. So we got -4 on board. That Tsuru's another -2, so I have 2 5 costs ahead of me. So that's I can do -2 -1 on one, and -2 -1 on, or -4 on the other. So I need like 1 more minus to be able to clear the board, or at least clear his Sabos, so I can try to go for lead. So here we're just kind of like discussing back and forth, trying to figure out like what are the tiebreakers, just reassuring, you know. And I'm just like in the tank right now, right? When you got 1 turn left, at least you think you have 1 turn left. And you're trying to end game, right? Because at this point, I could just, you know, fill board. But if I fill the board and if we tie life and I have the same board size as him, I'm going to lose because my deck is a lot smaller than his. I've been being a very successful mill player, milling myself out. But yeah, so thinking I do want to kill both the Sabos so I can try to finish the game. I think opponent only has 4 cards in hand, so we're going to Tsuru -2 Sabo, making it a 3, and then we're going to Tsuru, make it a 1, or a stage to make it a 1, and then like this is a situation where like I think okay, we're just gonna drop the Gecko here. So Gecko. I think we're going to find a Lucci and then something to -3. So I should have a Helmeppo in the yard from earlier in the game. So we're going to replace the Tsuru and we're going to Lucci both the Sabos, kind of clearing the way, allowing for me to swing potentially 5k, 5k, 8 or 9k. It's not still like a great position to be in. But we're going to try here. And so getting to the end of the game, basically what happens here is we will start with a swing, I believe for 5, just to poke him. We do only have 1 Dawn up. Honestly, it would have been the same amount of Dawn, just a Rebecca, or to Rebecca Lucci, than to just Moria. So we're going to send 9 at lead. He is going to He could counter out of this, which would be crazy, but yeah, so he does have 2k, 1k, but the way he slams his cards down pretty much tells me that his hand might be dead. And so we're gonna send 5k at lead, and he's gonna take it, and then he's just gonna concede because he thinks the game's over. I also thought the game was over, but maybe we could have done it differently. It's still a very grindy match. A lot of pretty tight plays from both of us. But yeah, that should finish this up, and I do take it very narrowly, and we will go to round 4 next video. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you next time.